As a pianist, I've played my fair share of difficult piano pieces. I feel like that's why a lot of pianists start playing piano to an extent just to impress people. Obviously, they find it fun, but I'm being honest, that was one of the reasons why I started playing piano. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to the top 10 most difficult piano pieces, so let's get into it. So these aren't actually the most difficult piano pieces, it's more just relative, I guess, to what he's played. So I'm just going to take it considering the list by itself and not really like piano repertoire as a whole. So let's get started. Alright, so Vivaldi's Summer. Alright, so far it doesn't look too difficult. It's just a lot of octaves and a lot of runs. I feel like if you just do exercises regularly, like your scales and your octaves, you should be completely fine so far in this piece. Alright, wow. Alright, so that section was actually very difficult. Normally in that piece, you would just use a single melody, just one note melody, or one note scale, one note run, whatever you want to call it. What he did is he did double thirds and he did sixths at incredibly fast speeds like that, and they sounded incredibly clear and even, which is extremely difficult and will take a lot of time for practice. So that is actually very difficult. Again, I think you should be fine if you just practice your scales and your octaves. The only part that I would say is going to take a lot of time to work on in this arrangement is just the double thirds and the sixths, which is incredibly difficult again. Alright, so Fantasy Impromptu. I feel like this is one of those pieces where a lot of pianists start and they hear it and they want to play it, and they try and it sounds atrocious and completely terrible. Honestly, that's what I did. I tried playing Winter Wind, La Campanella, I tried playing Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, all these pieces, and they sounded awful. And I feel like this is a really good milestone piece for a lot of pianists after 2 or 3 years overall. So, and it's honestly, it's not that difficult. It sounds, I think, a lot more difficult than it is. It's more just the polyrhythm that once you get past the polyrhythm, you should be fine. The piece in itself isn't that difficult. Alright, so I don't know if you guys heard that, but right around here, you can hear the thumb is playing most of the melody in the right hand. And right here, he switches it to the pinky. Which, to get little details like that in these type of pieces are very difficult, honestly. And to get it to sound emotional in a lot of the sections is, again, pretty difficult. Alright, so Flight of the Bumblebee by Rachmaninoff is, in my opinion, that's a weird pick, because I say that Fantasy Impromptu is more difficult personally, even in terms of technique, because it's just a lot of chromatic scales, and once you get past that, it's not much else. It's just maybe some jumps here and there, maybe some overlapping of the hands, but it's nothing crazy. The thing about Rachmaninoff's arrangement and his pieces in general is that he had very large hands, so instead of just playing like a normal octave, he usually stresses out to like a tenth, which is very difficult, and mostly in these kind of pieces where it's fast-paced and fast tempo. Again, right here, a lot of tenths. Jumps. Alright, so Moonlight Sonata, I'd say that this is a pretty good pick. I'd say it's honestly much more difficult than Fantasy Impromptu. Even though people put them around the same level, I think that Moonlight Sonata is more difficult in terms of technique, and if you want to get some small sections emotional, it's, again, very difficult. but it's mainly just a lot of arpeggios, so it sounds very difficult, but after a lot of practice, it's definitely doable. It's not as crazy as it sounds. Alright, so I don't know if you guys saw that video, the Moonlight Sonata Beethoven 1 minute, 10 minute, and 1 hour challenge I did, but this section right here with the black keys gave me so much trouble. I think I was gonna be struggling this much. Like, it was so easy to just like slip off, mostly at the tempo. Alright, so Little Red Riding Hood by Rachmaninoff. Again, Rachmaninoff. He has a lot of jumps, a lot of stretches, and this piece, a lot of octaves, a lot of crazy arpeggios. This is a good spot to put it, I think. Honestly, this piece I think can be higher. It depends on what the next piece will be, but I think that maybe this piece can be a bit higher because this is extremely difficult. Okay, I was wrong. I'll admit I was wrong. Opus 10 number 1 is much more difficult than Little Red Riding Hood. This is easily one of the most difficult Chopin etudes out of all 24 of them, maybe like top 5, top 4 most difficult. Because why this is so difficult is normally in an arpeggio you would use an octave, and I'm probably gonna show it on screen now, but you would normally use an octave, but for this piece you do crazy stretches up to a 10th or even an 11th, which to play it with clarity and evenness is extremely difficult. This is honestly, it's one of those pieces where I'd say it's more difficult than it looks. So Opus 10 number 4, honestly, I think that this is less or not as difficult as Opus 10 number 1. I think that Opus 10 number 4 should be a little bit before Opus 10 number 1, but maybe it's, I guess, preference. Alright, so Winter Wind, the amount of stamina and endurance and accuracy you need to play this entire piece well and at the same tempo and with the same energy, maybe top 3, top 2 most difficult Chopin etudes. I'm honestly kind of surprised there's no list yet. Again, extremely difficult. Alright, that was a really smooth transition, but La Campanella is one of those pieces where a lot of people want to play it because it's supposedly one of the most difficult piano pieces ever composed, which is completely wrong. But it's also one of those pieces where a lot of people want to play it and they just completely butcher it because how difficult it is for their level. But it's definitely very difficult. It's a lot of different techniques, a lot of jumps, a lot of trills, and a lot of arpeggios. Alright, so Liszt, obviously Liszt takes number 1. It's a lot more difficult than La Campanella. Technically even, it's much more difficult. Maybe not technically. I'd say that they're on the same. Alright, so here, it's one of those things where they look and sound more difficult than they are. These little chromatic octaves, they're not that difficult. They're used in a lot of pieces like La Campanella, Chopin Etude 25 number 10, they're used in that. It's not that difficult. It sounds and looks a lot more difficult than it is. A crazy piece. I think that was a pretty good list. I think some things could be changed. For example, Opus 10 number 4 could be 4 Opus 10 number 1. Things like that, but overall I think it's a pretty good list. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.